On the day of my son Lucas's 5th birthday, I accidentally overheard Dad talking with my brother. My brother said, "You have silently liked Evelyn for so many years. That's one thing. But after you found out she liked Nathaniel, you actually went after Nathaniel's fiancée and even had her bear your child, all just so that Evelyn could marry Nathaniel. What you did, was it really worth it?" Alexander remained silent. His lowered gaze revealed deep tenderness for Evelyn. "I'm willing to do this. What about that child? Don't you like him at all?" Alexander lit a cigarette amidst the swirling smoke. His expression was unclear. I stood outside the door with my son, filled with extreme disgust. It felt like falling into an unfathomable darkness. It turns out, these 7 years of pursuit and tenderness were all an act. It turns out, Alexander has never loved me and the child. I wipe away my tears. I squat down and hug my son. I say with red eyes, "Lucas, Dad has no feelings for us anymore. Should we also be more understanding? Take the initiative to leave." After I lull my son to sleep, I open the computer. I start drafting the divorce agreement. This year marks the 5th year of my marriage to Alexander. In these 5 years, he has been pretending with me and our son for Evelyn's sake. Now, I have decided to stop this false performance. My 5-year-old son walks in with a photo frame. He asks, "Mom, are you really going to separate from Dad?" He looks up at me, his eyes filled with reluctance. "But today is my birthday. Dad even gave me my favorite Lego toy." "Mom, did we get it wrong? Dad actually cares about me." I was taken aback for a moment. I felt a bit dazed. It's been 5 years since we got married. Alexander has always been very good to our son. That year after our son was born, he developed pathological jaundice. The hospital issued several critical condition notices. Alexander pushed all his work aside. He went to the hospital every day to be with our son under the lights. Later, I heard that our son's condition improved. He, who is usually calm, had tears in his eyes for the first time. He even took me to the temple to make a vow of thanks. When he was 3 years old, the nanny took our son to the amusement park. That day happened to be a holiday. There were a lot of people. Our son was pushed and started crying loudly. When Alexander learned about this, the next day he built a small amusement park in the villa. In these 5 years, he has indeed taken special care of our son. But precisely because he was so considerate, when I learned the truth, I felt particularly sad, thinking of this. My eyes suddenly felt warm. I couldn't help but hold my son tightly. "Lucas, be good. Dad has no feelings for us. Let's not disturb him anymore. Okay?" My son's eyes suddenly darkened, but then he seemed to remember something. He held the photo frame up in front of me. He looked at me anxiously. He said eagerly, "Dad clearly took a family photo with us. If he didn't like me, how could he smile so happily?" He seemed to be trying hard to prove that he was the beloved child of his father. I picked up the family photo. I stared at the picture for a long time. I couldn't say a word. If I didn't like it, why would I smile so happily? If I didn't like it, how could I have developed the photo and cherish it so much? I couldn't figure it out for a moment. I sniffled. Just as I was about to hand the photo frame back to my son, my hand slipped. The photo frame fell to the ground. The son was startled. He quickly crouched down. He anxiously wanted to pick it up. 2 photos unexpectedly fell out of the frame. One is a family photo of the 3 of us. The other one is a family photo of Evelyn and her family of 3. Only in the photo, Dad's position was replaced by Alexander himself. The son picked up the photo. His eyes were red. He asked me, "Mom, why did Dad put Aunt's photo in our family portrait? Does he like Aunt?" I opened my mouth to speak, but my throat felt blocked. It hurt, only hurt. "Lucas, Mom will take you away. Let's go." "Okay." The son withdrew his hand, silently staring at the family photo on the ground. He didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, he finally spoke up. "Mom, I want to give Dad 3 more chances. If he really doesn't like us, we will leave him forever." I closed my eyes. He nodded. He agreed to his son's request. "All right. For the sake of my son, Alexander, I will give you 3 more chances. After 3 chances, I will definitely take my son away and leave you forever. Evelyn is my biological sister. Since we were young, our parents favored her. Teachers and classmates liked her too. My fiancé, who grew up with me, even ran away from the wedding in public for her. That day, I was wearing a beautiful wedding dress. Yet I looked more embarrassed than everyone else present. Just when I was in despair, Alexander stood up. He drove away those who mocked me. He even helped me wipe away the tears on my face. He said, Olivia, others don't care about you, I care. Others don't love you, I love you, marry me, I will make you happy. Later, our son was born. He said to Olivia, Olivia, thank you. I will do my best to make you and our son happy. I believed him, but he deceived me again. I temporarily set aside my chaotic thoughts. I took our son to the toy store. This is what I usually do with friends when I have free time. Olivia, are you really decided to divorce? My friend looked at our son and shook his head, saying, even if there are conflicts between you, for the sake of the child, if possible, don't get divorced. I shook my head. I didn't say much. I lowered my head and continued sorting the accounts. My friends no longer advise me, but when she glanced at a certain line, she suddenly pulled at me and said, Olivia, look how much Alexander cares about you and the child. As the company president, he actually recharged an 8 million membership card at our toy store. He also reserved the latest toys every year, requesting them to be delivered directly to Golden Hills Estate. Given his thoughtfulness, you should give him another chance. My son lifted his head, his eyes sparkled, as if to say, Mom, look, Dad still loves me very much. I forced a smile, but my heart felt extremely heavy. Golden Hills Estate, that is Evelyn's home. My son rarely gets the latest toys on time. Just yesterday, on his birthday, Alexander gave him a set of Ferris wheel Lego. My son particularly loved it when he received it. He even held onto it tightly while eating. I'm daydreaming. The store clerk walked in. Speak, Mr. Chen. You asked us to deliver the Lego toys to Alexander. It was signed for yesterday. I paused for a moment. I asked, what gift? The son unconsciously looked at him. A friend explained. There was a batch of unwanted toys in the warehouse before. I originally planned to get rid of them. Yesterday, your husband came to the store to buy toys. When checking out, he saw the clerk throwing away trash. He then asked for one. I didn't want to give it to him. I thought it was a bit inappropriate. But your husband said it was the birthday of the servant's child, so I gave it to him. The friend said with a smile, your husband is really considerate. He even remembers the servant's child's birthday. She became more and more excited as she spoke. She even gently patted her son's head. Lucas, what do you think? The son's face was extremely pale. He lowered his head. He nodded lightly. Auntie is right. But I noticed the toy in his arms. There was a noticeable water stain on the metallic paint. My heart suddenly ached a few times. I took my son into the store. I wanted to make him feel less sad. Lucas, stop crying. Look at this Lego. It's also a Ferris wheel. It's bigger and prettier than that one. Mom will buy it for you. Okay, my son pressed his lips together. He leaned his head against my chest. No need. I don't like Ferris wheels. Mom, Dad still has 2 chances on the way home. My son kept fiddling with his smartwatch. The first contact on the watch was Alexander. On the way close to home, he asked me, Mom, yesterday's birthday wasn't finished. Can I let Dad celebrate with me one more time? It's been 5 years since we got married. Alexander has never missed his son's birthday every year, but he has never fully spent a birthday with his son. Every time the cake is just set up. The candles haven't even been lit. His phone rings. There's always something going on at the company. Friends often ask me for help as well. In the past, I really thought he was too busy to handle it. Now I see clearly. He simply doesn't want to deal with it. Seeing my son's expectant eyes, I really couldn't bear to refuse. I had to agree. Finally, my son smiled. He quickly opened his watch to message Alexander. Dad, you suddenly left during my birthday yesterday. Mom said she would celebrate it again for me tonight. I sent a message. I want you to always be with me. Is that okay? But after the message was sent, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no response at all. The son stared at his phone. He found that no one was replying to him. The expectation in his eyes slowly faded away. Mom, does Dad not want to be with me? After saying that, he smiled understandingly. He pretended to be indifferent and said, it's okay. Dad is busy. I understand. Having Mom is enough for me. Seeing his son being so understanding, I felt like a heavy stone was pressing on my heart. It was so uncomfortable that I could hardly breathe. I was just about to say a few comforting words. Suddenly, the phone watch rang. It was a message from Alexander. Okay, wait for me to get home. The surprise expression immediately appeared on my son's face. He quickly raised his hand. Excitedly, he showed me the message. Mom, you have to see this. Dad said he will definitely come back. They have been married for 5 years. This is the first time he promised not to leave. My son was especially happy. I've been smiling all the way, he said. Mom, this time Dad won't suddenly leave. I want to hire a photographer with my red envelope money to capture the birthday celebration tonight completely. He also said, Mom, I remember Dad loved to eat mangoes. Let's buy a mango cream cake. Looking at his excited expression, I teased him with a smile. At first, my son agreed, but he quickly changed his mind. He said he didn't want to invite anyone. Let's just forget it. I just want to be with Mom and Dad. At this point, my son suddenly asked me, Mom, if Dad saw how much I love him, would he like me more? I was momentarily at a loss for words. A wave of sadness surged in my heart. Alexander, I really hope you can do it. Please don't let our son feel disappointed. The clock on the wall chimes again and again. The appointed time is drawing near. Alexander still hasn't shown up, but Evelyn's social circle has new updates. In the photo, Alexander is playing at the playground with a little boy. Both of them are wearing the same plush headbands. Next to the photo, it says, Happy birthday, my darling. I turn to look at the living room. My 5-year-old son is focused on playing with the balloons on the floor. He wants to make them look more pleasing to Alexander. He is the same age as Alexander. He is also celebrating his birthday. He also needs someone to accompany him. My son is always overshadowed by Evelyn. He notices my gaze. He seems to understand something. He quietly asks me, Mom, is Dad busy again? I stare blankly at my son's expectant eyes. My heart hesitates. I don't know whether to tell him. His dad is not busy with work, but instead I was accompanying other children for their birthday. I sniffed. I held my son tightly in my arms with a pained heart. I said softly, Don't be sad. You still have your mom. Your mom will always be by your side. My son didn't ask any further, but his eyes were already glistening. When we were unwrapping the cake, no one mentioned Alexander, as if he had never made any promises. It seems like this family never had him in it. Alexander, you only have one last chance. I turned off the lights, just about to light the candle. The door was suddenly pushed open. Why didn't you wait for me? Alexander stood outside the door with an unhappy expression. The son saw him. His eyes brightened instantly. He immediately broke into a smile. Dad. He jumped down from the chair and ran happily towards the man. Suddenly, Alexander brought 2 people in from behind. Evelyn is holding the child. She said gently with a smile, Lucas, good evening. The son was taken aback for a moment. He instinctively looked at Alexander. He asked, Dad, how did they come here? The man looked at his son's bright black eyes. He suddenly felt a bit uneasy inside. He hesitated for a moment. Finally, he spoke. Today is your brother's birthday. We forgot to buy a cake. It's just right that you also get to celebrate your birthday today. I brought them back directly. This way you can celebrate together. Alexander emphasized as he spoke. Lucas, you won't mind, right? Right? The son opened his mouth. It seemed he wanted to say something more, but Alexander had already gently pushed him aside. He walked in with Evelyn and the child. I clenched my hanging hand tightly. I really want to drive them all out of the villa, but I also understand. My son must see Alexander's true nature, so I just sighed. I brought my son to the table. Lucas, it's time to blow out the candles. My son responded. The smile on his face seemed a bit unnatural. Just about to close my eyes, Alexander suddenly shouted, Wait a moment. He moved the cake in front of Evelyn's child. He looked at his son with some anger and said, Lucas, why are you so inconsiderate? Today is also your brother's birthday. How can you blow out the candles alone? After saying that, he turned to Evelyn. With gentle eyes, he said, Evelyn, blow out the candles with the child. Evelyn glanced at me. Her gaze held a hint of provocation. She said, Alexander, you are so kind. The son doesn't understand the struggles between adults. He just glanced at Alexander with a sense of grievance. Then he quietly walked towards Evelyn's child. He had just approached. Alexander frowned immediately. Lucas, don't crowd your brother. Why are you so disobedient today? If you keep this up, I won't let you have any cake. The son was suddenly blamed. His eyes turned red instantly. He held back his grievance. He opened his mouth to defend himself. Dad, I really didn't mean to. I just thought blowing out the candles this way would be easier. Alexander's expression had just relaxed a bit. Evelyn gently tugged at his sleeve. Her eyes held a hint of grievance. Don't blame the child. It's us who came at the wrong time. If Lucas doesn't like us, we can just leave. We have long been used to being bullied. Alexander heard that weak voice. A wave of pity suddenly surged in my heart. He wore a stern expression. He grabbed his son and dragged him into the bedroom. Lucas, You need to go back to your room and think about where you went wrong. When did I admit to being wrong? When can I come out again? After saying that, he slammed the door shut, looking at the tightly closed door. His son finally couldn't hold back. He cried and threw himself into my arms. Mom, why does Dad treat me like this? Does he really not like me very much? He cried very sadly. But no matter how loud he cried, it couldn't drown out the laughter from downstairs. I also felt very sad. With red eyes, I asked him, Lucas, you have used up all 3 chances. You still want to wait? His son was momentarily stunned. His eyes were red from crying so hard. He wiped his tears and said firmly, he asked me for help. Mom, the birthday isn't over yet. Can you wait until midnight? I really don't want you and Dad to split up. My tears suddenly fell. I sniffed, speak, okay, just as the words were spoken. The door was suddenly pushed open. Alexander walked in. Without saying a word, he slapped his son. Who told you to buy mango-flavored ones? Don't you know that your brother is allergic to mangoes? Alexander gritted his teeth, his face contorted with anger. I was stunned for a moment. I quickly pulled my son behind me to protect him. Alexander, are you okay? How are we supposed to know you were bringing Evelyn home? The mango-flavored ones were specifically bought for you by our son. Upon hearing this, Alexander's eyes suddenly narrowed. His face also turned pale in an unnatural way. He squatted down. He asked nervously, Are you okay? Are you hurt? I really didn't mean to. He was momentarily speechless, unable to respond. The son turned his head to the side, covered his face with his hand, cried silently. It felt like Alexander's heart skipped a beat. He quickly reached out and picked up his son. Lucas, Dad knows he was wrong. Don't be angry with Dad. Okay, Dad will take you to the hospital right now, Dad said. I promise this is the last time. I will never let you get hurt again. Okay? Hearing his sincere promise, the son's eyes flickered slightly. He was about to say okay to Alexander when he heard Evelyn calling from downstairs with a cry. Alexander, come down quickly. Leal said he feels unwell. I and my son looked at that man at the same time. As expected, he hesitated for a second. Then he put down his son. He said to his son, Lucas, Dad will take your brother to the hospital first. I'll come back to pick you up later. After saying that, he immediately turned around and went downstairs. Just as he stepped out the door, his son suddenly called out to him, Dad. The man heard the call. He immediately stopped in his tracks, nervously turned around. Dad, do you like me? Alexander's expression relaxed. He replied with a smile. Of course. Dad loves you the most. The son didn't say anything more. He waved goodbye to him. After the door closed, the son asked me, Mom, Dad's car can seat 5 people. Right? I didn't answer. I asked him directly, are we still waiting? The son shook his head. He smiled at me, say it, I'm not waiting anymore. I've packed my luggage. Heading straight to the airport with my son. Before boarding, I received a message from Alexander. Evelyn's child is fine, just a little scared. I'm coming home to pick you and our son up. Don't buy mangoes anymore. Also, I apologize to you. I handed my phone to my son. Ask him, do you want to reply? My son lowered his head. He said softly to me, no need. Let's go, okay. I picked up my phone, sent Alexander one last message. I found out your secret, Alexander. Let's get a divorce. Right after that, Alexander's call came in immediately. In the past, I always hoped he would reach out to me first. I would never intentionally ignore his calls. Now, I not only hang up directly, still worried he might call again. Why not just turn off the phone before boarding? I was holding my son, gave one last look. Goodbye, Alexander. 5 years of marriage, my love. My son's dependence. Up to this moment, it's completely over. Late at night, Alexander was gripping the steering wheel with one hand, repeatedly dialing the same number, but no one answered on the other end. Later, a voice prompt came through the phone. Sorry, the number you dialed is turned off. Alexander was clearly very nervous and a bit panicked. He is usually very calm, but now he looked like this. Evelyn had never seen him like this before. She couldn't help but ask, Alexander, what happened? I dropped my phone. Alexander instinctively turned to look at her. He said in a low, confused voice, she wants to divorce me. Evelyn listened carefully to his words. A wave of happiness surged in her heart. She said, Leal and I came back with you today without telling you in advance. It's normal for my sister to be angry. Then she said again, but I really didn't intend to interfere in your relationship. I just envy how harmonious your family is. Unlike me and Leal, it's always so cold and quiet. Only you, Alexander, care about us. It's all my fault. I'll call my sister right away. Let her take out any anger on me. Don't let yourself be wronged. I grew up with my sister. She was spoiled too much at home. She always loves to throw little tantrums. Now she actually uses divorce to scare you. I apologize to you on her behalf, Alexander. Don't take it out on her. I know you too well. You have always been very generous. You can tolerate others. I never show a bad attitude towards others. If only Nathaniel could be like you. The relationship between my son and me wouldn't have escalated to this point, she said while her tears kept falling. If it were in the past, Alexander would have seen her crying. He would definitely be heartbroken. He would immediately hold her in his arms and gently comfort her. But now he seems to ignore her tears. He has completely changed. Evelyn is unwilling to accept this. She raised her voice and even deliberately nudged him with her arm. Fortunately, there's still you, Alexander. If I had married you back then, our life now would surely be very happy. Alexander still showed no reaction. Evelyn felt a surge of anger inside. She was about to unleash her trump card. On this silent night, the streets were empty. Just around the corner, a large truck suddenly drove towards them. Alexander was dazed. He seemed completely unaware of the danger. Evelyn screamed in fear. Alexander was startled awake. He quickly turned the steering wheel. The two vehicles nearly collided. Evelyn was panting heavily. Her face was pale. Leal in her arms woke up due to the violent shaking of the car. She began to cry loudly. Alexander rubbed his forehead. He pulled the car over to the side of the road. Evelyn moved closer with Leal in her arms. She said, Alexander, Leal and I were both terrified. Leal cried with tears all over her face. She reached out her little hand. She wanted Alexander to hold her. Alexander said nothing. He got out of the car and walked over to Evelyn. He helped her and Leal opened the car door. Evelyn asked in confusion, We haven't reached home yet, Alexander. What are you doing? Alexander said. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I have something urgent to attend to at home. It's quite close to your home from here. You and Leal can take a taxi back. Is that okay? Evelyn seems a bit incredulous. Take a taxi? It's so late. You can just leave me and Leal on the roadside. Let us take a taxi ourselves. Alexander frowned. It's not far from your home. It won't take long to walk. If you're worried about taking a taxi, then just wait here for a bit. I'll call the driver to pick you up. Evelyn pressed on. You mentioned something urgent. It's just that Olivia wants to divorce you. That's just a trick she's playing. Have you forgotten how you used to treat me? I got a splinter in my finger. You didn't even participate in the math competition, but you still had to accompany me to the infirmary. You said you would always treat me well, putting me first in everything. Those were your own words. Things that have been done. Have you forgotten everything? Alexander was already in a bad mood, and then he got tangled up with Evelyn. It made him even more irritable. He only left behind a comment that he indeed had urgent matters. He had no choice but to leave you here. I hope you can understand. Then he turned around and got into the car. The car quickly disappeared into the night. Evelyn stood by the roadside holding the child. All the inner shock and anger turned into hatred for Olivia. Alexander drove home. It usually takes half an hour. This time he took less than 10 minutes. He pushed open the door. The room was cold and empty. He was momentarily stunned. He quickly ran into the bedroom. Half of my wardrobe is empty. Jewelry and clothes are all gone. Only the things he gave me are left. I didn't take a single piece. Alexander suddenly thought of something. He hurried to his son's room. Upon looking, the luggage is also gone. Alexander looked at the toys scattered all over the floor. He helplessly covered his face. As he moved around, he accidentally knocked over the Lego Ferris wheel he had given his son yesterday. He was momentarily stunned. He remembered the joyful expression on his son's face when he received the gift. I couldn't help but smile. It took a while for me to snap back to reality. The smile slowly faded away. Since he liked it so much, why not take it with him? I looked around my son's room in confusion. Suddenly, a strong premonition hit me. My son and I really have to leave him. The phone suddenly rang. He looked down to check. It was a message from the lawyer, Mr. Alexander. The divorce agreement is ready. When would you be convenient to come and sign? The earlier fragility vanished in an instant. Alexander was suddenly furious. He slammed the phone down onto the ground. The screen shattered, pieces flying everywhere. Divorce. Olivia, don't think you can get away with this. As soon as the words were spoken, Evelyn's call came through to the home phone. He felt very troubled. He wanted to hang up the phone, but he hesitated for a moment. He still answered. Evelyn said through her tears, Alexander, Leal's allergy has gotten worse. I really don't know what to do anymore. I was too anxious just now. I said the wrong thing. I apologize to you. Please. Save Leal, please. The world is so big. But besides you, I really don't know who else would be willing to help me. I'm so useless. I'm sorry to Leal. I'm not a competent mother. Alexander felt a tightness in his heart. He quickly said, "Don't worry. I'm on my way. I will find the best doctor for Leal right away. I promise. He will be fine." He rushed to Evelyn's house. Then with Evelyn, they took Leal to the hospital. After the doctor examined her, they immediately arranged for Leal to be hospitalized. Outside the ward, Evelyn, with tears in her eyes, grabbed Alexander's sleeve. Choking back her tears, she said, "Alexander, thank goodness you came. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do." Alexander initially felt compassion. He was about to reach out to hug her for comfort, but somehow, the images of Olivia and Lucas suddenly flashed through his mind. They are currently missing. His desire to embrace her suddenly cooled. He simply said, "It's okay, don't cry." Evelyn said with a sob, "Leal has been crying in pain." "Alexander, what should I do?" She lifted her head, trying hard to show her helplessness. Alexander quietly looked at the ward. He appeared distracted. Evelyn looked at him, her eyes filled with anticipation. "Alexander, you've been so good to me and Leal all these years. I really appreciate you. If it weren't for you, I might have given up a long time ago." Her voice gradually became softer, with a hint of hesitation. "You know what? I'm really regretful. If I hadn't been so willful back then, maybe we—" Alexander frowned. "Evelyn." She gently leaned closer to Alexander, wrapping her arms around his solid waist. She whispered, "If time could go back, I would choose to be with you without hesitation." This was something Alexander had waited a long time to hear. But when he actually heard it, he suddenly froze. He realized he was thinking about me. At this critical moment, the first person he thought of was actually me. He was pondering, where my son and I are right now. "Have you eaten? Did you find a suitable hotel? Is it safe there? The weather forecast says the temperature will drop. Will the clothes I brought be enough for the cold of spring?" He feels. It seems like he has fallen in love with me. Thinking of this, Alexander suddenly pushed Evelyn away. Evelyn's eyes widened. Her face was filled with surprise. Alexander avoided her gaze. He said softly, "Evelyn, now we both have our own families. The kids are already so big. What's the point of saying this again? What significance does it have?" Evelyn didn't expect him to refuse. Her expression suddenly turned ugly. All these years, he has always loved her, pampered her, and pursued her. He never dared to oppose anything she said. He always followed behind to please her. But now, he actually rejected her confession. He said he already has his own family. Alexander actually turned her down for me. He didn't dare to look at Evelyn. "Stand up and walk outside. I'm going out for a smoke. You should go check on Leal." Evelyn stared at his back, angrily gritting her teeth. Alexander lit a cigarette in the hallway. He took a deep drag. He muttered to himself, Olivia. The smoke lingered, just like my son can never be forgotten in his heart, the years after marriage. Alexander often worked late due to company matters. Many times, he was busy until late at night or even early morning. I always worried he wouldn't eat on time, and feared he would be too lonely by himself. So I often brought homemade meals to the office to keep him company. He thought it was too much trouble. He told me not to bother, to stay at home and relax. But I told him it's okay. "Where are you? Home is just where it is." Later, we had a son. Those nights when he worked overtime, I would sit beside him, quietly accompanying my son while reading. Sometimes he would secretly look at my slim silhouette, thinking I didn't notice. Occasionally, our eyes would meet. He seemed a bit flustered and carried a hint of unnoticeable shyness. Perhaps he must have had feelings for me long ago. Thinking of this, Alexander couldn't help but compare Evelyn again. Evelyn never considered the time or occasion when she approached him. She always took advantage of his favoritism towards her. She would unapologetically demand immediate replies to her messages and appear by her side the moment she needed him. If Alexander didn't act according to Evelyn's wishes, she would immediately give him the cold shoulder, ignoring his explanations, not replying to his messages, not answering his calls, even refusing to meet him. In the end, she would block and delete all his contact information. The more Alexander thought about it, the more anxious he felt inside. He extinguished the cigarette. He decided to go find Evelyn and clarify things. I walked to the door of the hospital room. I was just about to push the door open. Then I heard Evelyn talking inside. "Leal, be good. Have another bite of mango. Leal cried out, "Mommy, I'm feeling really bad. I don't want to eat mango." As soon as Evelyn heard this, her expression changed immediately. "Have you forgotten who made our lives so good now? How could I have such an ungrateful child like you? Leal, you need to be obedient. Eat your mango properly. Later, act a little pitiful. Then you can recognize Uncle Alexander as your dad. That way we can continue living in a big house. And wear pretty clothes. Didn't you say you really like Uncle Alexander? That he feels like your dad. You always wanted him to be your dad, didn't you?" Alexander suddenly pushed open the ward door. His face was full of anger. His hands were tightly clenched. His chest was rising and falling erratically. "Evelyn, what are you doing?" Evelyn's expression changed drastically. She quickly threw away the mango in her hand. "Alexander, listen to me. It's Leal. Leal likes to eat mangoes." She secretly brought the mango to the hospital. Fortunately, I discovered it in time. Alexander's gaze was icy cold. Evelyn rushed forward. She wanted to grab his hand, but he shook her off violently. I heard it with my own ears. I saw it with my own eyes. "What more do you have to say?" "Evelyn, I really didn't expect this. I can't believe you are such a person, full of lies and seeking vanity. You don't even care about your child's health for your own interests. I actually did this for someone like you. I have been ignoring Olivia's true feelings for me." Evelyn said tearfully, "Alexander, I was wrong. I just love you too much. I'm too afraid of losing you. You know that. All these years I've been raising Lucas alone. It has been so hard. You've seen it all." Evelyn said, "I really don't want to live like that anymore, Alexander. I truly love you. I really want to be with you." Alexander coldly chuckled. He responded, "Evelyn, I will never believe you again." Alexander said, "From now on, we are no longer related." After saying that, he slammed the door shut and walked away without looking back. Evelyn sat on the ground. Her hair was disheveled. Her face was filled with anger. "Olivia, you always steal other people's men. I will never let you have it easy in this lifetime. Absolutely not. I took Lucas to visit aunt and uncle who live abroad. They really liked Lucas. They also sympathized with our situation. They let us stay at their house for a while longer. I also want a change of environment. Start a new life with Lucas. Let time slowly heal the pain that Alexander has caused over the years. When I took Lucas to school to handle the enrollment procedures, I didn't expect to run into Nathaniel. He is my fiancé who suddenly left on my wedding day. He stood by the roadside, silently watching me and Lucas. His eyes held emotions I couldn't understand. When he realized I was looking at him, Nathaniel seemed a bit awkward. At that moment, my son tugged at the hem of my shirt. He curiously asked me who that person was. I shook my head. I quickly hugged my son and left in a hurry. Nathaniel chased after me. He shouted my name from behind. I had no choice but to stop. I protected my son behind me and blocked his curious gaze. I looked at Nathaniel coldly. I asked, "This gentleman, is there something you need?" Nathaniel was hurt by my attitude, but he still mustered the courage to continue asking. "This is your son with Alexander, right? How did you end up here? Where is Alexander?" I held my son even tighter. "I have already divorced Alexander. Lucas is my child alone." He looked a bit surprised. "You divorced Alexander." I increasingly felt it was inexplicable. I said, "It's nothing. I'm leaving now." I turned around, taking my son and preparing to leave, but he called me again. Nathaniel said, "Olivia, it was my fault before. It's my own lack of resolve. That's why I was deceived by Evelyn back then. I did something that hurt you, the day before the wedding." Evelyn suddenly told me she was pregnant. I was completely stunned at that moment. It felt like the sky was about to fall. "I'm sorry for what I did to you. I felt ashamed to marry you, so I ran away at the wedding, but I never thought it would hurt you so deeply. Later, I had to marry Evelyn, but after the marriage, I realized I couldn't bring myself to like her, and I couldn't take responsibility for her and the child in her womb. I hate Evelyn because she drugged me and prevented me from marrying you. I can't accept you marrying Alexander. You were supposed to be my wife. That's when I decided to leave, but now I realize I was wrong. I'm willing to spend the rest of my time making up for the hurt I've caused you. You are raising Lucas alone. Life will be difficult. I don't want to see you so exhausted. Please give me another chance. Let me take care of you and Lucas. I've only ever had you, Olivia, in my heart. That has never changed. Olivia, can you forgive me? Will you give me a chance to start over?" I took quite some time to understand what happened. He said he was drugged and lured. He was also forced into it. But what did I do wrong? I grew up with him. We were engaged long ago. I have always genuinely liked him. I have always believed in him completely. I have always dreamed of truly becoming his bride, with joy and anticipation in my heart, only to face his betrayal on his wedding day. Fortunately, Alexander showed up just in time. He helped me diffuse the awkwardness. He maliciously pulled me into another abyss. I was blinded and deceived. I've been struggling in pain for many years. Finally, I can see hope again. Now, Nathaniel wants to casually resolve everything with a simple "I like you" and an apology. He tries to win me back with sweet talk, falling back into the trap of love. But this time, I'm determined not to be deceived by him again. I firmly rejected him. Mr. Nathaniel, let the past be the past. We should look forward. Don't get tangled up in people and things from the past anymore. I have things to do, so I won't keep you company. Nathaniel refuses to let go. He tightly grips my arm. I struggle to break free, but it's useless. My son is jumping anxiously. He slaps Nathaniel's arm and shouts, "Let go of my mom. Let her go now." Suddenly, Alexander's voice comes from behind. "Nathaniel, who told you to touch Olivia? Let go quickly." Alexander walked over quickly. He forcibly pulled me away from Nathaniel. He stood in front of me and my son, protecting us. Then he turned to ask me, "Olivia, are you okay?" Such concern. I haven't heard it much over the years. Now it sounds even more ironic. He squatted down again, holding my son's shoulder. He said sincerely, "I'm sorry. Lucas, Dad is late. Did I scare you?" Lucas glanced at him, then turned away. Alexander didn't mind. He stood up and confronted Nathaniel. "You were the one who ran away from the wedding first. You not only made Olivia sad, but also made her lose face. She became the laughingstock of others. How can you still have the face to bother her now?" Nathaniel's skin is really thick. "Olivia is now my wife. It has nothing to do with you. It won't have anything to do with you in the future either. We get along very well. Please don't disturb us anymore, Master Nathaniel. Our relationship is very good." Nathaniel sneered. "You can only deceive yourself with that statement. Olivia has already told me. You two are already divorced." Alexander's body stiffened slightly. Then he immediately responded, "It's nothing serious. It's just that I accidentally made Olivia unhappy. That's why she threw a little tantrum at me." He paused. His tone was somewhat indifferent. "This is a matter between husband and wife. You, an outsider, should not worry about it," Nathaniel said with a sarcastic smile. "Husband and wife, Alexander. Have you forgotten how you married Olivia? You took the opportunity to get close to Olivia after I ran away from the wedding. You said you've always liked her. Deceive her into marrying you and having children. Why don't you tell Olivia? Evelyn seduced me. She drugged me. She ruined my relationship with Olivia. All of this was arranged by the two of you together." Alexander glared. "Nathaniel, don't say any more. You have always been particularly attentive to Evelyn since childhood. For her, you would do anything. She said she wanted to marry me. Yet you unhesitatingly gave her to me. You even personally sent her to my bed. Alexander, what you did, is that still considered manly?" Now he actually says in front of Olivia that their marital relationship is very strong. It's truly ridiculous. Do you still remember Evelyn in your heart? Do you dare to confess in front of Olivia? Over the years, who have you really cared about in your heart? Can you guarantee that you've never lied to her? Alexander is eager to apologize to me. "Olivia, I have indeed done many things to hurt you in the past, but now I realize I was wrong. I am willing to make amends. I am willing to make it up to you and Lucas in any way. Can you give me another chance?" he continued. "I have already understood my feelings. The person I like is you. From now on, I will only have you in my heart. I am clear about Evelyn's character. I have already cut off contact with her. She won't disturb me anymore in the future. In the future, it will just be the three of us. You, me, and Lucas. We will live well as a family of three. Is that okay?" I asked him. "The divorce agreement. Did you receive it?" Alexander appeared a bit flustered. "Divorce? What divorce? Olivia, I will not agree to the divorce. Lucas is still so young. You're not considering yourself. You also need to think about the child. A child needs both parents to be present. A complete home is necessary. Lucas, don't you think so? You surely wouldn't want to be a child without a father, or a child without a mother, right?" In the past, Lucas would definitely not wait for Alexander to finish speaking. He would rush into his arms, with a tender voice saying he doesn't want his parents to separate. He doesn't want to lose either of them. But now, the son just lowers his head, not saying a word. Alexander suddenly realizes, since he appeared until now, he has always liked his son's understanding and polite behavior. Yet he has never called him dad. Nathaniel coldly smiles. Do you think that now, Olivia and the child would still believe your words? Alexander shouted angrily. Don't say any more. He continued to speak. Evelyn is your wife. Leal is your child. These are all your responsibilities. You can't even handle your own family matters. What right do you have to criticize me stirring up trouble between me and Olivia? Nathaniel said. I divorced Evelyn a long time ago. Leal's custody is also with her. You treat her like a treasure. I've never taken her seriously, Alexander. Evelyn's voice came from behind, trembling with tears. Alexander, Leal and I heard you went abroad. We bought tickets overnight to come here. Leal just got out of the hospital. Even if you don't care about me, you should think about Leal. Please forgive us. Evelyn's eyes were filled with tears. She reached out to pull Alexander's sleeve, but he dodged away. Alexander looked disgusted. Don't touch me. I won't be fooled by you again. He looked at me with a flattering gaze. Speak. Olivia, now you should trust me, right? I really won't have any contact with Evelyn again. I stared at him coldly. No emotions stirred within me. Nathaniel retorted. So what? Olivia's past injuries. Can that just be brushed off, Alexander? Someone like you doesn't deserve Olivia's love at all. I'm not worthy. Do you, a coward who ran away from marriage, deserve it? Evelyn watched Alexander and Nathaniel argue over me. Her eyes filled with jealousy. She pretended to be surprised and said to me, Olivia, how did you get here? And still with Nathaniel, you two, I let out a cold laugh. Watch her continue acting. She turned to Alexander. Say it. Alexander, you came all this way for Olivia, but who knows she's actually here to meet Nathaniel behind your back. I truly feel it's not worth it for you. Speaking of which, she wiped her tears. But Alexander was uncharacteristically ignoring her words. His gaze remained fixed on me. Olivia, come home with me. Okay, Nathaniel looked at Evelyn with disdain, as if he saw something repulsive. Evelyn, stop pretending. Do you think anyone would believe a word you say now? Olivia is your half-sister. Your mother married your father later and gave birth to you. I gave birth to you. You originally couldn't enter the Thompson family. Later, Olivia's mother passed away. Your dad just married your mom as his second wife. You have always been jealous of her, because she has been the young lady of the Thompson family since childhood. And you feel that you can't measure up to her. After entering the Thompson family, you always bullied her, and you found ways to make her lose her father's affection. From childhood to now, you always took Olivia's things. You didn't even spare her fiancé. You knew long ago that Alexander liked you, but you looked down on him for being poor. You didn't think much of him at all. You just treated him like a dog that obeys your commands. Why are you now relentlessly pursuing him? Is it because he is now Olivia's husband? Or is it because he is now the president of the Thompson Group? After Evelyn's true colors were revealed, she angrily said, I am after fame and fortune. Is Olivia really that noble? She always acts so high and mighty. I've been looked down upon since I was a child. Those things were supposed to belong to me. Dad loves me and Mom the most. I am the true young lady of the Thompson family. Everything in the Thompson family should be mine. Olivia's fiancé is mine. Her husband's favorite is also me. Alexander turned around and slapped her. Nathaniel kicked her hard. Evelyn screamed and fell to the ground. Her eyes were filled with resentment. She stared straight at me. Leal sat beside her crying. As a result, she slapped me back. I couldn't stand it any longer. Holding my son, I intended to leave. Alexander called out to me from behind. Olivia. I ignored him. Unexpectedly, he suddenly knelt down. He said, I really know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I'm willing to do anything, to make up for my past mistakes. I remained silent. Alexander turned to Lucas with a pleading look in his eyes. Lucas, can you say a few words for Dad you remember, right? Dad has always cared for you a lot when you were sick. I took you to the hospital, and I built a playground for you. I gave you the gifts you liked on your birthday. Lucas has always been Dad's favorite treasure. Dad will treat you even better in the future. Can you help Dad persuade Mom to change her mind? I'm really worried that my son will soften. But then he said, Dad, a few days ago on my birthday, I heard your conversation with Uncle Lai. Alexander recalled what he had said before. His heart was filled with regret. He remembered telling the other party, your mom and I have already given you chances. More than we agreed upon before. There were still plenty of opportunities given, but you have already missed them. Dad, this is the last time I'm calling you that. You can go now. Neither Mom nor I want to see you again. Alexander left in a daze. His back looked a bit unsteady. Indeed, we had already given Alexander multiple chances. After using up all 3 chances, Lucas still insisted on holding my hand. We waited until midnight that day. I waited and waited, but all I got in return was one hurt and disappointment after another. But it's okay. These terrible things are finally behind us. Now, it's time to start anew, to begin a new life, I said while holding Lucas's hand. Let's go. Mom will take you to handle the enrollment procedures. Then, I gently said to her, Mom will always love Lucas the most, with all her love for you. It will be more than what all the other children's parents give them combined. After Alexander returned to his country, he has not signed the divorce agreement. However, my son and I have an unspoken understanding. We no longer pay attention to his entanglements. I heard that Nathaniel and Evelyn have completely cut off contact, and he no longer provides her with any financial support. Evelyn, whether for money or feelings, can only keep entangling with Alexander, but Alexander is very repulsed by her. In a moment of desperation, Evelyn drugged Alexander. She wanted to force him into a relationship. Unexpectedly, Alexander resisted fiercely. In the scuffle, he accidentally pushed her. Evelyn's face hit the corner of the table. She was seriously injured immediately. Although she underwent surgery, she still has a permanent scar. Alexander, unable to withstand the drug Evelyn used, his health deteriorated. He lost the ability to live a normal life. As his primary heir, I naturally took over all of his assets. As for Alexander and Evelyn, their relationship has deteriorated to an irreparable state. All that remains between them is deep hostility. I finally succeeded in getting a divorce. After that, I settled abroad with my son, with my company. My son slowly emerged from the shadows. He grew up to be very outstanding. After escaping the predicament of marriage, I found that there are beautiful sceneries everywhere in life.